Which are better, serrated or non-serrated steak knives? In this video, I test them head-to-head on a filet mignon, a New York strip, and a skirt steak. You'll see how they compare new and after dulling the edges. By the end, you'll understand why I recommend one type of steak knife over the other. Non-serrated or straight-edge steak knives have a smooth edge sharpened equally on both sides. Serrated knives have small teeth or scallops, which makes the cutting edge jagged. Some people prefer straight-edge knives because they're easier to sharpen and the smooth edge glides through steak and makes cleaner cuts. And the cleaner the cuts, the less juice you lose on the plate. Others prefer serrated steak knives because you don't need to sharpen them as often. The points of the teeth will eventually dull, but since the recessed part of the edge only makes contact with the steak and not the hard ceramic plate, this type of steak knife stays sharper longer. With a non-serrated knife, the entire edge hits the plate with every cut, and because of that, it dulls faster. People also like serrated steak knives because the teeth grip and tear through tougher cuts of meat better than a straight edge. Others see this as a downside because the ripping action shreds the meat and causes more juice to spill onto the plate. To get to the truth and determine which type of steak knives are truly better, I tested serrated and non-serrated knives on 3 types of steak. First, I cut a filet mignon with a straight edge, non-serrated steak knife. The knife sliced right through the steak without any resistance. The slices were clean and smooth without any ripping or tearing at all. The first cut with the serrated knife was also smooth, but as I cut closer to the center of the steak, I needed to saw back and forth with more force. As I did that, the muscle fibers of the meat ripped and shredded slightly. Here's the side of the steak I cut with the serrated knife, and here's the side I cut with the straight edge knife. Again, here's the side that I cut with the serrated knife, and here's the side that I cut with the non-serrated knife. I also tested both knives on a New York strip steak. This type of steak is still tender, but it has a bit more chew and a firmer texture than a filet mignon. The serrated knife cut through the New York strip reasonably well, but instead of smooth, clean cuts, the teeth snagged and tore the meat slightly. The straight edge knife glided through the steak effortlessly, just as it did on the filet mignon. The non-serrated edge made smooth, even slices without damaging the meat. Here's a side-by-side look at the pieces I cut with both knives. As you can see, the piece I cut with the straight edge knife is nice and smooth, and the piece I cut with the serrated knife is rough and the meat is slightly damaged. Here's another look. I cut this side of the New York strip with the straight edge steak knife, and here's the side I cut with the serrated knife. I also cooked a piece of skirt steak. This type of steak is much tougher than a filet mignon and a New York strip. So in theory, this is where the serrated steak knife should outperform the non-serrated knife. The idea behind the serrated knife is that the sharp, pointed teeth make it easy to tear through tougher meats like this. First, I cut the skirt steak with a serrated knife, and it sawed right through with ease. I thought the straight edge knife would struggle with this tougher steak, but it also sliced right through with no issue. But what about edge retention? As I mentioned, it's a common belief that straight edge steak knives dull faster. To see if this is really a factor, I dulled a serrated and non-serrated knife by hitting and sliding the edge across a ceramic dinner plate 600 times, 300 with each knife. Since the average steak requires about 10 cuts to portion into bite-sized pieces, hitting each blade on the plate 300 times simulates the dulling effect after cutting approximately 30 steaks with each knife. After dulling the edges, I cut the New York strip with both knives. Although I could tell the straight edge knife wasn't as sharp as before, neither had any issue slicing through the steak. I also cut the skirt steak, and surprisingly, the straight edge knife sliced through it more easily than the serrated steak knife. The key takeaway is that after simulating the dulling effect from roughly 30 steaks, neither knife showed significantly worse performance. There might have been a more noticeable difference if I had hit the plate 800 or 1,000 times, but 30 steaks is a lot, and it seems reasonable to assume that most home cooks wouldn't mind sharpening their knives after that much use. Another factor to consider is how easy each type of knife is to sharpen. There are no limitations when sharpening straight edge steak knives. You can use an electric sharpener, pull-through sharpener, whetstone, roller sharpener, or any other sharpening device. With serrated knives, you need to either get them professionally sharpened or use a small sharpening rod between each serration, which is a tedious task. So based on my tests, it's clear that non-serrated knives perform better than serrated knives, even on tough meats like skirt steak and when the edge is slightly dull. Plus, they're easier to sharpen when the time comes. For those reasons, I highly recommend straight edge, non-serrated steak knives for most home cooks. If this was helpful, check out this video where I review the Horl 2, the most popular roller knife sharpener. And for more videos like this, click the logo to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.